So I'll just do a quick, just brief and very preliminary introduction. We're thankful and thrilled to have Mike Winstead describing what he's done as part of his MAED Culminating Project today during his presentation. Uh, I'll let him tell you all about the topic and why he did it and what's going on behind the scenes, and he'll showcase some of his work. I just want to say that it's been a delight to have Mike back in our program. Mike did study with us when he was an undergrad for his certification. So we're really, really thankful that you chose to be with us again, Mike, for your MAED work. And I can tell you've really grown a lot, and the work you've been doing is just outstanding. So thanks for sharing a little bit with us today, and I'll turn it over to you.
Well, I appreciate that very much, Dr. Quinn. Thanks everybody for joining me today in this presentation. I'm going to go ahead and quickly share my screen for the presentation that I've put together here. Give me a quick heads up if you can't see that. We're all good? Fantastic.
Great.
All right, so I have used this opening slide for a number of my presentations this year. It just fits a lot of what has been an issue or sort of an opportunity moving forward with my graduate work and also with my culminating project as we're going to go through today. I currently work as a middle school art teacher in Durham, North Carolina. There's our building on the left, Voyager Academy. We are a charter school, and I have been lucky enough to work at Voyager for 10 years. This is my 10th year completing, so I appreciate everybody being able to join me here as we go through this. This presentation is titled Learning Remotely and Teaching Digitally. And on the right-hand side there is a picture of my wife sort of captured candidly as we were working from home in the past year or two. As mentioned in the introduction, I did finish my undergraduate at East Carolina. I was thinking back to the dates, and I have been a pirate for about 20 years now, which is surprising to hear me say that out loud, but I finished my undergrad in 2005 with dreams of going to the radio business and did not want to touch the classroom at all. It was one of those things, I'm sure some of you have heard me tell this story about how I got through with everything I wanted to know about being a radio host and then decided I didn't want to do it anymore, but didn't feel like the classroom was the fit for me until I actually got a chance to go and be a helper and TA in the classroom for a number of years. And so I came back and ended up earning my visual arts certification in 2011. And then it just felt only right to come back and continue my education with East Carolina and hopefully earn my degree here at the end of this spring semester. So East Carolina has been a big part of who I am and will continue to be so. So the question became in March 2020, when I applied for graduate school, thinking that I would be coming back and it would be a good time to learn on how to expand on my knowledge as an art teacher. Well, two things sort of happened at that same time. One thing is, as I was applying for grad school, our classroom went completely virtual, no training, very few guidelines. We were all teaching from home in March of 2020.
Yeah, same here.
Mm-hmm. And so it prompted a lot of questions, a lot of information was thrown at us all at once. How do we do this effectively, and can we do this effectively? Taking a hands-on classroom and completely 180ing this classroom journey to remote learning, and some of the things that came with that. You may have seen this image here on the right-hand side. I posted it here. It says some of the greatest teachers taught virtually. It was circulating around the internet about time when things started going from home and people started appreciating having to work and teach from home at the same time. And it's one of those things that, like, I remember growing up with a lot of these teachers, but their information and the way they presented that information is a little bit different than the classroom setting. And so using that as a starting point, it became another question: how effective is it to teach online? How do we work that physical classroom in the breadth of a laptop? And so as I jumped into it and I started from the bottom and not knowing where to begin and how to reach the most students that I could, all of the students that were still in class in February, but now all of a sudden here we are in March, not knowing what to do, I turned to the things that I knew pretty well. And so we've always been a Google-based school at Voyager Academy. A lot of the work that I do in the classroom is very much hands-on. I circulate, I have a desk, I have a chair, I hardly ever sit at them. I'm always up in the midst of something, providing feedback, being able to jump in where my students need me to be. And now I'm in front of a screen effectively talking to nobody at a time when we hadn't even gone to Zoom meetings. I was recording videos on Instagram and posting them to a classroom Instagram page that I wasn't sure how many of my students had access to. And so the image on the right here is Larry Loudmouth sort of cut and glue design that was a digital assignment I gave to my students. And I think probably of the 300 that I was teaching at the time, I think I saw maybe 25 of them turned in online because we just didn't have the call and answer sort of set up for making sure that everything was there and all of our students had everything they needed.
Is that a puppet?
Well, it's kind of a puppet. Larry Loudmouth is a character that was created by an artist from Atlanta, Greg Mike, but it's more of a graffiti type box character. So ours wasn't actually a puppet, it was just a collage.
Thank you.
No problem. I don't know if you guys know this about Instagram, but they only allow you to record 2-minute videos at a time if you're not one of their verified accounts. So it made for very small snippets of information.
Which might be good.
It might be good. Trying to teach a lesson, maybe not as much. Dr. Arnold, you and I had a conversation before we began the presentation about all of the applications we had to learn over the course of the change in presentation. And so these are the applications that I've had to learn in the past year and a half for working online. And I think if I count correctly, there were only 3 or 4 of them that I knew of ahead of time. And so the learning curve for myself and also some other teachers that I worked with at Voyager was very, very high in trying to get this information across to students and using things. And so they were learning right along with us. So in part, the technology that we were using became a learning situation in itself. Okay, I'm presenting on Instagram, but here's a lesson on how to use Instagram to get the lesson and then move forward. So the technology was not lost, but also became part of the presenting, which I think was a great way to approach it.
Michael, what is IGTV?
Let me go back. So IGTV is just Instagram TV. It is one of those it's a platform for recording longer sessions.
Okay.
So the original app, Instagram, is for short clips, pictures, posts, IGTV is their spinoff to do longer videos, but I believe the maximum that you can do for IGTV without actually streaming is about 5 minutes of content.
Okay.
So I had some students that were with me at Voyager. These students, these are from last year in fall 2020, which I guess is 2 years ago now. But school year wise, the idea is that these students were, because Voyager is a very Google-based school, had access to Google Classroom. It's something that they were able to get to with their school-issued email address. And so it became sort of our central hub for information. And so as we were planning, as we were presenting, as I was teaching online, my students, when we started the fall 2020 school year, had to work. We had come to an agreement as Voyager students and staff that we would meet synchronously online. We would teach for about 30 minutes of a class period, but then be available for another 30 minutes after our class period for students who wanted to stick around and ask questions and get guided practice for lessons that we were presenting. And that was visual arts, choral arts, math, science. All of our teachers had the same sort of similar setup. And so with these projects, I highlighted these specifically for a project that I do in the classroom, but I was presenting to my students online. And I wanted to show you these specifically because these are ones that each student had the same project, but approached it in a different way and used the items that they had available to them for these projects. And I don't know if you can tell easily, but I don't know if I can highlight or not, but the student here on the left used magazine clippings for the edge of their story quilt.
Yeah.
One of my students in the top right up here used an old baseball that they cut up for their quilt. And then I had a student over here that used magazine and also candy wrappers because that's what they had available and that's what was colorful, and they felt like that was the best thing to include for their story quilt.
Michael, what was the prompt? What did you ask them to draw in the center?
So this is it's a base. The artist Faith Ringgold, who does story quilts, where she draws, paints, and as she stitches the stories to the quilts. This comes from the story Tar Beach, where the main character flies over the buildings, and by flying over the buildings, what she flies over becomes hers. It's her property, as a way of showing ownership. So they were to take what they wanted as sort of a dream situation scenario, and to take what they would want as their own. So we have the Eiffel Tower, and then more closer to home, I have in the top right, one of my baseball players wanted our Durham Bulls athletic park.
Yeah, I can see that now. If you get real close, I can see the Durham Athletic Park.
Yes, a little harder to see up there as it was out of focus when you took these pictures.
And then the lower right hand looks like South America, Mexico.
Yes, that is a student that I have had luckily since kindergarten as a Voyager student, and he came from Colombia.
Colombia.
Yes, so he has a lot of love for his heritage, and actually is one of my students, sort of as a side topic tangent, who is going to be working this summer with an internship with NC State, like an arts and engineering camp.
Wonderful, wonderful.
So they are sticking with it, and
good.
I love that for them.
That's great, yeah. And these images are pretty big. They're pretty large, aren't they?
They are. One of the things that knowing that we were going into starting our school year remote, I wanted to make sure that if there was anything that I could give the students to have them be an equal sort of footing. And so we ordered a 9 by 11, 9 by 12 sketchbook for each of our students to work from home for each of our grade levels.
Yeah, yeah.
That
Yeah.
instead of buying classroom materials for the year, we spent our classroom budget on making sure they had those available at home if they needed them.
Wonderful, wonderful.
So then that goes forward in our culminating project idea here. So it takes what we know and where we found ourselves. And I had a need, and I knew that others probably had a need as well, to provide engaging lessons to students that aren't completely digital, that had some digital aspects, but maybe also helped hands-on, but they could be completed with limited supplies based on where they were learning at the time. And that was the basis for the project that I went moving forward. Starting off, ending one school year, not knowing exactly what was happening, starting the next one with a little bit more knowledge, but knowing that there would be influxes of students in and out of the classroom when we actually got back, and had to quarantine if possible, if situation allowed. That's where the culminating project idea comes from. So I got working on that idea, and I did an informal poll on our Voyager Academy Middle School parents Facebook page. And that's what our image is on the right. And I put it out there to them, knowing that we would start our school year and that there might be some hiccups here and there. If you have to quarantine, if you're having to work from home, what supplies do you and your child have available to you? And our Facebook group for our middle school is about 500 members. I don't know how many of them are active. I don't have those metrics, but I received probably close to 100 responses overall. And I took that as a starting point. If there's 100 people that are answering, then maybe there's another 100 that maybe are the same and could fit in that same bracket. So that was where we started information wise, and just proceeded forward with that. I knew I wanted to present my my lessons from a very cordial and welcoming way. And so having the teacher on the screen, but also being able to see what was going on, was a big sort of necessity for planning lessons. The image on the right here is the rig that my son and I built one afternoon out of PVC pipe. And we ended up putting it together knowing that we would want to shoot from the top down, but also be able to utilize the camera on the laptop to record facial expressions. My youngest son and daughter, a set of twins who are in first grade this year, started kindergarten remotely. They were very excited to go to school because they were going to Voyager. They said, you know, we're going to daddy's school. And it was a big thing for them. And then when they couldn't go into the building, it kind of diminished what they were doing and their love of or excitement of going into the classroom. But our kindergarten teachers at Voyager Elementary did such an amazing job of approaching in a similar setup to this. And part of where I got my idea from is the software Loom, Loom, and it provides a sharing of the screen, but also the little funny circle that allows you to narrate from almost like a pop-up in a cartoon. And they were able to read and do math manipulatives and provide flashcard help while also recording their faces with their animated expressions. And my kids just fell in love with their teachers. And we have 5 per grade level, and they were able to see all of them in the little bubbles talking and, hey, boys and girls, welcome. We're glad you're here. We're going to talk about math today, or we're going to read a story today. And there was a teacher that my daughter did not have as her homeroom teacher, but fell in love with and was like, oh, we get to watch Miss Mitchell's video today. She sent us one for reading a story about Goldilocks and the Three Bears. And it was just, their faces lit up 100% to see that.
Wow. What a
And so
success story.
it is. It's
I mean,
fantastic.
really, you're presenting this, I hope, in the fall at the North Carolina Art Education Association. Yeah.
I will try my best.
Yeah. I mean, really, you do need to do that because it's been very, very difficult for many, many teachers.
No,
And you've got
yeah.
a K-12 success story here.
Absolutely. And we've worked over the past year of trying to get things together. Sorry, our phone's ringing in the background. I hope it's not picking up through the microphone. But this was the way I knew I wanted to present my lessons, being able to see the instructor, but also have a clear view of what was going on. So that was our overhead on the right, and our that's a screenshot of one of our lessons for Artistic DNA, which is based on a lesson by another Atlanta artist, Reggie Laurent. So starting off with that, I knew that was what I wanted to do. And so my kindergartners were kind of the base for that design, but my third grader was the one that helped me put it together. He loves building things. And so it was sort of a work around to try to figure out what would be the best course of action for that. So he and I worked together on that to build.
What a lot. What a lot.
Uh-huh. So the plan came down to lesson design, easily accessible or household supplies, and providing alternative supply options if necessary. And so going through to try to figure out, I actually had in the summer session of East Carolina, in between starting this school year, I took a photo editing or a digital photo survey course online. And so I learned a little bit more than I knew before about Photoshop. And this is a comic that we had to put together with photo editing. And it struck home again as I started recording videos and editing the website design, which I'll show you in just a minute. But it came to fruition that we were able to go through and find a structure for the website for putting together lessons that can be accessible by all students and even teachers that could use the lessons in their class if they wanted a visual arts component for a lesson. Each lesson is divided into 3 mini lessons. If you can see the shot list over here, we were working on putting them together. Lesson 1, and then there are 3 that sort of correspond to an overarching lesson. But the idea was to build it, or I guess design it with a 2-dimensional component as well as a 3-dimensional component to highlight different skills and techniques. And lastly, before I actually show you the website and some of the functions on the website, it's designed very simply through Google Sites. Like I mentioned to you before, Voyager is a very Google-based school. So I had access to all of the website design tools that are available for a Google site. And it was put together over this past semester after the videos were recorded and the lessons were put in. And so there's a main page, which takes you to an about page that just sort of tells the story that I just broke down to you. There is a lesson drop-down menu where you can select each lesson individually, or you can click on the link and it will take you right to all of them to scroll through. And then there are some other web links that are available for other lessons that are outside of the box as well. Our first Voyager website, which was funny to go back and look at when I first set that up in March of 2020, has the opening sentence on the website says, hey, so we're going to be at home for the next 2 weeks at least, and then we'll see from there. And so now we've seen from there and updated. But the idea is one of the lesson example pages here has a couple of images to showcase, supply image with items circled in red for production, and also an attached lesson plans for students and teachers, which are time-stamped with the video tutorials. So
now, when you say, Michael, when you say they're time-stamped with the video tutorials, what is the significance of that?
For the website design, there's a video that is a walkthrough, but it also allows a student or a teacher to go to a specific point in the video if they need to see that form or lesson or part explained again, or video reference.
Gotcha. Good. That offers a lot of flexibility.
Absolutely. Now I'm going to stop presenting with this one because I have to go back to the other one. And here we are. This is our homepage. VAMS, which stands for Voyager Academy Middle School, Visual Arts. It is presented, and all of my students will have access to it after this presentation. I will send it out so that they can have at it as needed. Our About page is a little bit of the story I told you, and it has some information about the creation of the site. Thank you, Dr. Song, for that recommendation of putting that information in there. It also tells a little bit about me.
Good.
And an introductory video that basically says why the website was created. This was the setup for how the Loom video presents, where you can record your screen or secondary camera while talking directly to your camera. And then a couple fun images as we're moving through. The lesson gives a drop-down menu, which you can pick any of the lessons, whichever one jumps out to you, or if you click directly on the lessons, it will take you to the lesson page, and you can pick the image from there. And then the web links down at the end, we'll go back to the lessons in just a minute. The web links at the end, our initial digital learning site. I reached out to another former alum, Ira Varney, who teaches at South Central High School, for his work that he did online, and I got his permission to link his website to ours, and he works at the high school level. So while my lessons are geared more elementary middle, his are geared more toward high school. And I think that that gives a lot more options for others if they want to present and also have those as an option. And then also Courtney Jones, who is also another ECU alum, had some art links put together as a Google document. So she gave me permission to link those as well on our page here. And so to go back to our lessons, I'll just pick the first one here. Making a mini book is our 3D portion of our first set of lessons. And the idea is that it will be for creating a mini book, a smaller foldable practice drawing, and we use it for cartoon faces and expressions and comic strip planning in my classroom. So it takes you to a pop-out where you can watch on Loom specifically, or we can play it right from here. So I'm going to try to play it. I hope I've linked the audio correctly. So I'm just going to play and see if it does work. Today we're going to be creating a mini book. Now for this project you'll only need a few supplies, so we're going to go through them really quickly, and then if you need to have more time, pause the video and go gather those and then join us again. We are going to start with just one plain piece of paper. Any piece of paper will do. I'm working a rather larger size, a 12 by 18 piece of paper, so this is going to be mine, which will fold in a little bit later. This will work with a regular size piece of computer paper, 8.5 by 11, or even larger if you want to. Construction paper will work as well. Any color, your choice for this project. And even notebook paper if that is what you have around your home or wherever you are working today. Another supply that you'll need. Did that sound come through?
Yes.
I'm hoping it did.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I'm going to scoot ahead just a little bit to see some of the working actions. Fairly equal sections, and that is going to come into play as we make the pages of our book. For this next step, I'm going to fold it back in the middle one more time, using the same folds I had before. I'm not creating any new folds at this point. So I've folded it in half, and you can still see that crease from where I folded it. I'm going to do the same thing, only opposite now. I'm going to fold that edge towards the middle, almost like a zigzag now. The other half is still there, but I'm going to flip that over, and I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, pulling it back across. So what were my edges are now folded back towards the middle. So I'm going to stop right there, and I'm going to note the timestamp on my video says 3:45, and I'm doing that so that I can scroll down a little bit further in the lesson. The goal and objective is here on the website. The materials needed ahead of time, if the students need to grab those, also sort of circled in our image from before down below, and an image of what it could look like when it finishes, to an art lesson plan, which is down below, shared on my Google Drive, which has the option to punch out and download. So you can be downloaded and printed out for student or teacher use if they need to. The lesson plan is on the screen here, also has the medium is a folded paper lesson, some elements or principles that are highlighted, vocabulary words that student or teachers may need to know, and also activity lesson and the activity procedure with the timestamps there.
Nice.
So at this point,
Very
we just
organized,
finished
Michael.
up. Oh, thank
Very
you.
organized. I just have to say that.
So at this point in the video, we just finished up the landscape orientation, folding those lines. They're folding to create a zigzag in the paper so the shape looks similar to the letter M or W, and that was 320. So we're finding the fold, removing that back through. So if that was a step that you missed, we can go back up above to where the lesson was, go back to time stop 320, and that would start from where I folded it. I'm going to do the same thing, only opposite now. I'm going to fold that edge towards the middle, and we can see the step again as needed.
Yeah, that is neat. I love it.
That is where it stands.
You've also got the visual art standards in there, so you know that was a cool piece.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
I mean, you know, we always have to do that. I mean, always.
And some of the lessons, if it wasn't highlighted in the presentation, some of them focus on art history, some of them focus on skills and techniques, some of them have a real world application that can be used outside of the art classroom. So it's a wide range of different lessons that hopefully can be utilized by students, teachers, and others.
Wonderful. That's a great showcase, Mike. Thank
you very much.
For sharing.